For millions of years, humanity was just another part of nature's grand, and often brutal, orchestra. We didn't lead the symphony. We simply played our part. Hunger was the conductor, telling us when to pack up and move. Fear was the rhythm, dictating when we had to run for our lives. The biting wind, the prowling predator, the raw, unfiltered instincts programmed into our DNA. These forces ruled every single moment of our existence. Early humans didn't look at the world and wonder why. They looked at it and obeyed. They were survivors, yes, but passive ones, swept along by currents far stronger than themselves. But then, somewhere in the deep, unrecorded mists of prehistory, something incredible happened. A quiet shift, a subtle but world-altering change. A group of our ancestors did the unthinkable. They resisted. They refused. For the very first time, humanity said no. Now, this wasn't a word spoken out loud. Language as we know it was still a distant dream. This no was an action. It was a choice. Imagine a small band of early humans, their bodies telling them the seasons were changing, the herds were moving, and it was time to follow. Instinct screamed at them to migrate or starve. But this time, they stayed. They refused to leave the cave that had become their home. This was a profound act of defiance against the very laws that had governed life for eons. It was a declaration. Think about what that meant. It was a no to the inevitability of fate. It was a no to the idea that death was the only answer to a harsh winter or a failed hunt. Instead of just accepting their circumstances, they started to challenge them. They began to think, what if we don't have to follow the herds? What if we could store food? What if we could make this place safe enough to survive the cold? This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about taking control. That single act of resistance, that unspoken no, was the spark that ignited human ingenuity. It was the moment we graduated from being passive animals to active agents of our own destiny. Of course, saying no to nature was unbelievably dangerous. It meant staring uncertainty right in the face. It meant taking risks that no other animal would dare to take. Sticking around when every instinct tells you to flee could easily lead to starvation or being trapped by predators. It meant conflict not just with the world around them, but potentially within the group itself. The old ways were safe, predictable. The new way was a gamble with the highest possible stakes. Survival, but this gamble, this audacious refusal, unlocked something powerful. It forced us to become creative. How do we survive the winter without migrating? We invent better clothing, we learn to preserve meat, we discover which roots and berries can be stored. How do we defend our home against larger predators? We work together, we develop strategies, we craft better weapons. Saying no to the easy path forced us to become smarter, more cooperative, and ultimately, more powerful. It transformed us from a species that simply reacted to the world into a species that actively shaped it. This silent rebellion, this first human refusal, is the bedrock of everything we've since achieved. Every city we've built, every disease we've cured, every mountain we've climbed, started with that fundamental decision to challenge the status quo. It was the birth of free will, the dawn of innovation. It was the moment we decided that we wouldn't just live in the world. We would make a world for ourselves. That one bold choice, made by nameless ancestors in a forgotten time, didn't just change their lives. It reshaped the destiny of our entire species, setting us on a path to become the creators, the dreamers, and the builders we are today. The story of humanity isn't just a story of survival, it's a story of rebellion. The first topic is life before choice. Before humans ever learned to say no, what did life even look like? It's a strange question, but the answer tells us everything about who we are today. Imagine a world governed not by kings, laws, or gods, but by raw, unfiltered obedience. This wasn't obedience to a leader, it was obedience to nature itself. For our earliest ancestors, survival was a simple, brutal equation. Follow your instincts, or die. There was no room for hesitation, no space for refusal. Life was a series of automatic reactions. When the last fruit was picked from the trees, they didn't debate where to go next. They just moved. When the shadow of a predator fell across the savannah, they didn't form a committee to discuss their options. They fled. When the air grew cold and the rains turned to ice, they didn't hope for warmer days. They migrated, or they perished. Every decision was made in a split second, not by conscious thought, but by an ancient, hardwired survival program. Hunger meant hunt. Thirst meant find water. Danger meant escape. There was no other way. This constant, reactive state kept our species alive, but it also kept us trapped. We were prisoners of the present moment, unable to see beyond the next sunrise, the next meal, the next threat. Early humans didn't shape their world. The world relentlessly shaped them. Think about the sheer, suffocating presence of fear in that world. It wasn't an emotion that came and went. It was the very air they breathed. Every rustle in the grass, every snap of a twig, every unfamiliar scent on the wind could signal a fatal encounter. The setting sun didn't bring a peaceful end to the day. It brought the deep, terrifying darkness where unseen predators roam. A sudden silence in the forest wasn't calming. It was an alarm bell, a sign that a hunter was near. A powerful storm wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a force of nature that could wipe out a family in an instant. In this reality, the slightest delay, the briefest moment of second-guessing your instincts, could be your last. The very idea of saying no was unthinkable. It was a death sentence. Imagine the mental leap required to defy these primal urges, to say no to the impulse to run and instead stand your ground, to say no to the gnawing hunger in your belly and save food for a day you could yet see. This wasn't just being stubborn. It was a revolutionary act against millions of years of evolutionary programming. It was like telling your own body to stop breathing. The instinct to consume everything immediately, to flee at the first sign of danger. These were the rules that had ensured survival for each. To break them was to gamble with extinction. And this pattern of obedience wasn't just about individual survival. It shaped their entire social world. Groups were small, constantly shifting, and temporary. The concept of a permanent home, a place to return to, simply didn't exist. Why would it? The resources were always somewhere else. Long-term plans were a fantasy. How could you plan for a future you couldn't guarantee would even arrive? Life was lived entirely in the now, with no expectations beyond securing the next meal and surviving the next night. Even cooperation, which we often think of as a defining human trait, was different. It wasn't about building a better future together. It was about responding to immediate threats. A group might band together to drive off a predator or find a new source of water. But once the crisis passed, the group might dissolve just as quickly. There was no shared project, no grand vision. It was a fluid, practical existence, driven by necessity. This was humanity before the power of choice. Incredibly resilient, perfectly adapted, but fundamentally limited. We were survivors, not architects. We reacted to the world, but we didn't truly decide our place within it. We were a part of the landscape, no different from the herds we followed or the predators we fled. But nothing in nature stays the same forever. The world was changing. The climate grew harsher, more unpredictable. The old hunting grounds became barren. Familiar migration routes led to dead ends. The reliable patterns that had guided generations of humans began to fail. Suddenly, simply obeying the old instincts was no longer a guarantee of survival. In fact, following the old rules was starting to lead to disaster. The pressure was mounting. A new strategy was needed. Simply reacting wasn't enough anymore. Something had to give, and slowly, quietly, out of desperation and necessity, humanity was approaching a monumental turning point. A moment where survival would demand not obedience, but the most radical idea of all, defiance. The moment where we would finally learn to say no. The second topic is the moment instinct was challenged. When was the very first time a human said no? Not with words, but with an action. This wasn't one single, dramatic event. It was a series of quiet, world-changing rebellions. A small group deciding to stay put instead of migrating with the seasons. A person choosing to protect someone weak instead of abandoning them to their fate. Someone saving a piece of food for a future meal instead of eating it all right now. Think about it. Every one of these choices flew directly in the face of instinct. Instinct is powerful. It's the voice in our heads, honed by millions of years of evolution, screaming at us to survive. It tells us to run from danger, to take what we can get, to put ourselves first. But at some point, humans started to ignore that voice. Imagine the immense risk involved. Deciding to stay in one place meant you had to face the possibility of drought, the constant threat of predators, and the gnawing fear of starvation. Protecting someone weaker than you meant putting yourself in harm's way, sharing your resources, and risking your own life for another's. Saving food meant going hungry today with only the hope of a meal tomorrow. Every fiber of their being, every instinctual alarm bell would have been ringing, telling them to obey, to follow the old ways, to just survive. But some humans hesitated, and in that hesitation, something new was born. They paused, and then they resisted. That small moment of hesitation was everything. It was a spark that ignited deliberate thought, the dawn of foresight. For the very first time in our history, We began to imagine outcomes beyond the immediate present. We started to ask profound questions, not with language, but with our choices. What if we don't run away this time? What if we don't follow the herd? What happens if we just say no? This was Yuente bravery in the way we think of it today. It was Yuente about heroic speeches or grand gestures. It was a raw mix of desperation and creativity. Nature had pushed humanity to the absolute edge, and the old survival playbook, written by instinct, was no longer enough. So we had to write a new one. We had to challenge instinct itself. The moment someone chose to go against their gut, the dynamics of the group changed instantly and forever. Resisting instinct isn't a solo act. It requires cooperation. If you decide to stay, you need to convince others to stay with you. You need a plan. You need to build trust. Suddenly, leadership wasn't just about who was the strongest or the fastest. It became about who had the best ideas. Who could persuade others? Who could see a path forward that wasn't just about running and hiding? Humans started listening not just to the primal scream of fear, but to the quieter voices of reason, experience, and collaboration. This critical shift is what truly separated humans from every other species on the planet. Animals adapt physically, their bodies changing over countless generations to fit their environment. But humans found a shortcut. We learned to adapt mentally, in real time. By resisting instinct, we unlocked the cheat codes to survival, strategy, innovation, and long-term planning. The first no was probably silent, maybe just a shared glance between a few individuals, a quiet decision to defy the expected. But its echo resonated through history. From that simple act of refusal, everything we know today began to grow. Settlements were built on the decision to stay. Complex tools were created from the need to solve new problems. Rules and social structures emerged from the necessity of cooperation. Eventually, these building blocks formed the foundations of civilizations. Humans were no longer just passive survivors, tossed about by the whims of the natural world. We had become active participants. We had begun to challenge the world, to shape it to our will. This ability to override our primal programming is our greatest superpower. Think about your own life. Every time you choose to study instead of watch TV, every time you save money instead of spending it, every time you help a stranger, you are tapping into that ancient act of rebellion. You are exercising the very same mental muscle that our ancestors first flexed tens of thousands of years ago. You are saying no to immediate gratification in favor of a better future. You are choosing the group over the self. You are betting on an idea. This impulse to defy our basic instincts is what allowed us to build cities, create art, explore the stars, and develop the complex societies we live in today. But here's a fascinating thought. Instinct never really goes away. It's still there, humming in the background. It's the jolt of fear you feel in a dark alley, the urge to grab that last piece of cake, the desire for comfort and safety, and that's a good thing. We need instinct. It keeps us safe. It warns us of danger. It's a fundamental part of who we are. The real magic of humanity isn't in eradicating instinct, but in learning to dance with it. It's about knowing when to listen to that ancient, primal voice, and when to tell it, "Thank you, but I have a better idea." It's about balancing the immediate needs of the self with the long-term goals of the collective. Our history is a testament to this delicate dance. When we got the balance right, we built incredible things. We explored new frontiers. We cared for one another. When we got it wrong, when we let fear or greed, our instincts running wild, take over, we saw conflict and collapse. So the next time you face a choice between the easy path and the right path, between what you want right now and what you want for the future, remember that you are part of a very long and proud tradition. You are standing at the same crossroads our ancestors did. The choice to hesitate, to think, and to sometimes say no to your own impulses is not just a personal victory. It is the very act that defines our humanity. That quiet rebellion, that first defiant no, wasn't just a moment in our past. It's a choice we remake every single day. It's the legacy that connects us all, from a small band of prehistoric humans huddling around a fire to the global civilization we are today. And it's the power that will continue to shape our future. If this idea sparked something in you, hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations into what makes us human. The third topic is risk, fear, and consequences. Have you ever wondered what it truly means to be human? It's not about our big brains or our fancy tools. The real story began with two simple letters. A no, saying no to our deepest, most primal instincts. But here's the twist. When our ancestors first defied instinct, they didn't find safety. They walked straight into even greater danger. Think about it. Following instinct is easy. It's predictable. A loud noise. Run. A strange shadow. Hide. It's a simple, effective survival script that nature wrote for every living creature. But then, some early humans decided to rip up that script. They decided to say no. No, we won't run. We'll stay, we'll fight. And that decision was terrifying. The ancient world was a place where uncertainty meant death. Defying instinct was the ultimate gamble. The fear didn't just disappear. It got 1,000 times stronger. Imagine your small tribe. Instinct tells you the herds are moving, and you must follow or starve. But someone says, no. Let's stay here. Let's build a shelter, find other food sources, and make this our home. Suddenly, you're not just fighting hunger. You're betting your life against the possibility of a failed harvest, a harsh winter, or a local predator you haven't met yet. Every choice was a new risk. And what about defending that territory? Instinct screams run when a saber-toothed cat appears. But now, your group decides to stand its ground, to protect the young, the old, the weak. This wasn't just bravery, it was a conscious decision to risk your life for the group. Every act of resistance had consequences, and those consequences were often brutal. Let's be real. Many of these early attempts probably failed spectacularly. Groups that stayed put might have starved. Grand plans to build a permanent settlement could have collapsed under the first big storm. Trust within the group could have shattered when a decision went wrong. It was a messy, painful process. But something incredible happened in those failures. They learned. Unlike instinct, which is a fixed program that just repeats, conscious choice allowed for adaptation. Each mistake was a lesson. Each loss sharpened their judgment. A failed hunt wasn't just a tragedy. It was data. Okay, that approach didn't work. What can we do differently next time? This feedback loop of try, fail, learn, and adapt was the engine of human progress. And as they did this, the relationship with fear began to change. Fear was no longer just a switch that triggered the run command. It became a variable in a complex equation. They started weighing risks. Is the danger of staying here really worse than the danger of moving into unknown territory? Is sacrificing one person's safety worth the survival of the whole group? This mental balancing act was brand new. It was the dawn of foresight, the ability to think about the future and plan for it. They were no longer just reacting to the present. They were actively trying to shape what came next. Of course, not everyone was on board. This new way of thinking created massive social tension. Imagine the arguments around the campfire. One person, let's call him Grug, is terrified. The spirits will punish us. Following the herd has always worked. Why change? Another, let's call her Anya, argues back. But the herd might not return next year. If we build a home here, by the river, we'll have water and fish. It's a risk, but it's a smart one. These conflicts were crucial. They forced humans to get better at communication. You couldn't just grunt and point anymore. You had to persuade, to reason, to justify your choices. Ideas started to matter as much as brute strength. Words became tools for building consensus and navigating risk. And this leads to another huge shift. Accountability. When you make a deliberate choice, someone is responsible for the outcome. If the plan works, great. If it fails, someone has to answer for it. This was the birth of true leadership. A leader was no longer just the strongest hunter or the biggest bully. A leader was the one willing to make the tough call, to shoulder the risk, and to take responsibility for the consequences, good or bad. Think about what that means. Leadership became a mental and social role, not just a physical one. It was about judgment, persuasion, and the courage to face uncertainty head. So, what happened to fear? It didn't go away, it never will, but it evolved. For our ancestors, fear was an absolute master, a dictator. By learning to say no, they began a long, difficult process of transforming fear from a master into a tool. It became a signal they could listen to, analyze, and sometimes consciously override. They learned to face fear, to debate it, and to manage it as a group. And in doing so, they didn't just survive. They began to thrive in a way no other species ever had. They turned the terrifying uncertainty of the world into a canvas for their own choices. This is our inheritance. Every time you face a difficult decision, weigh the pros and cons, and choose a path despite your fear. You are tapping into this ancient human superpower, the ability to look instinct in the eye and say, no, I'll decide for myself. That's the legacy of our ancestors, and it's the spark that continues to drive us forward today. The fourth topic is how resistance changed survival. Have you ever wondered what separates us from every other animal on the planet? It's not just our big brains or our opposable thumbs. It's something deeper, a fundamental shift that happened long ago in our history. It's the moment we learned to say no, not to each other, but to our own primal instincts. And once humans discovered they could resist instinct and survive, everything changed forever. For most of Earth's history, survival was a simple, brutal equation. React or die. An animal feels hunger. It hunts. It senses danger. It flees. It's a life lived entirely in the present moment. A constant dance of stimulus and response. Our earliest ancestors lived this way too. But then, a revolutionary idea began to take hold. What if we didn't just have to react? What if we could shape the outcome? This wasn't just a new strategy, it was the birth of a new kind of consciousness. This shift from passive reactor to active agent is the single most important story in human history. The first consequence of resistance was the birth of planning. Think about it. Resisting the immediate urge to eat every berry you find allows you to gather them for later. Resisting the instinct to wander endlessly in search of a slightly warmer spot allows you to build a shelter. This simple act of saying no, not now, is the seed from which all human foresight grows. Suddenly, survival wasn't just about the next meal or the next sunset. It was about next week, next month, next season. This newfound ability to plan led directly to preparation. Humans began to deliberately alter their environment to reduce risk. They started storing food, catching nuts, drying meat, and preserving whatever they could. This was a radical act. Instead of being at the mercy of nature's daily offerings, they were creating a buffer, a safety net against scarcity. They started creating shelters that were more than just temporary windbreaks. They built sturdy structures, a home base, and they began defending these locations. This wasn't just about fighting off a predator. It was about claiming a piece of the world and saying, "This is ours." These acts, storing, building, defending, had a profound effect. They dramatically reduced the need for constant, nomadic movement. And with that reduction came stability. Stability is the soil in which culture grows. With a stable home base, children could be raised more safely, shielded from the constant perils of a life on the move. The survival rate of the young would have skyrocketed. More importantly, stability allowed for the consistent transfer of knowledge. Elders could teach the young not just on the fly, but through dedicated instruction. Skills could be honed and improved over generations, not lost with each new migration. A group that stayed put could perfect its tool-making, its hunting techniques, its understanding of local plants. The community's collective intelligence began to compound. As our minds evolved to resist instinct, so did our tools. Early tools were extensions of our bodies, a sharp rock for cutting, a heavy stick for striking. They were tools for immediate survival. But with the advent of planning, our tools began to change. They became tools of control. Humans started creating barriers, like fences and walls, to keep predators out and livestock in. They developed more sophisticated weapons, not just for hunting, but for strategic defense. And then there's fire. Fire is perhaps the greatest symbol of humanity's resistance to nature. Think about what fire represents. It's a direct refusal of darkness. It's a rebellion against the cold. It's a rejection of raw, hard-to-digest food. By controlling fire, humans fundamentally reshaped their existence. It extended the usable day, allowing for more time to work, socialize, and create. It transformed our diet, unlocking nutrients in cooked food that fueled our growing brains. And it served as a powerful shield, keeping the most fearsome nocturnal predators at bay. A circle of fire was a circle of safety, a man-made island of light and warmth in a world of darkness and danger. It was us, saying a definitive no to the natural order of the night. Of course, saying no to the world as a lone individual is incredibly risky. One person trying to build a shelter, defend it, and gather food is a losing battle. But a group saying no, together, that's a force to be reckoned with. Resistance supercharged cooperation. The groups that learned to coordinate their resistance were the ones that thrived. This wasn't just about hunting together anymore. It was about organizing a collective defense, delegating tasks, and creating a shared strategy for survival. This deeper cooperation strengthened social bonds and laid the groundwork for the first rules of society. Who stands guard tonight? Who is responsible for maintaining the fire? Who gets what share of the stored food? These questions had to be answered. Decisions had to be made. This process created the first social structures. From resistance came order, hierarchy, and a sense of shared purpose that went beyond individual survival. You are no longer just an individual. You are part of a resilient, organized community. Over thousands of years, this continuous act of resisting instinct fundamentally reshaped our identity. Humans stopped seeing themselves as helpless creatures, tossed about by the whims of nature. We began to see ourselves as participants, as shapers, as challengers. This psychological shift is monumental. It is the mindset that allows you to look at a wild field of grass and see a future farm. It's the confidence that lets you build a village on a riverbank, believing you can manage the floods. This is the cognitive foundation upon which all of agriculture, permanent settlements, and eventually sprawling civilizations were built. But perhaps the most profound gift of resistance was the future itself. Instinct lives only in the present. An animal's world is a world of now. Hunger now, danger now, sleep now, but choose the ability to resist an immediate urge for a better long-term outcome creates tomorrow. By saying no to eating all the seeds, we planted a harvest for the future. By saying no to immediate gratification, humans made room for virtues like patience, sacrifice, and long-term investment. They made room for hope. This was the true turning point. This was when survival stopped being a temporary day-to-day struggle and started becoming sustainable. This was the moment we crossed the line, from being creatures who simply endured the world to becoming the creatures who would one day change it. Every city, every book, every invention, every piece of art, all traces back to that first, quiet, revolutionary act of resistance. The decision to wait, the choice to plan, the power of saying no. The fifth topic is the birth of human willpower. Have you ever wondered what makes us human? Is it our ability to create tools, to build cities, or to write poetry? I think it's something much more fundamental, something that happened deep within our ancestors long before recorded history. It was a single, silent act. The first time a human said no, not out loud, but inside their own mind. A no to instinct. A no to immediate gratification. This wasn't just resistance. It was the birth of willpower. Before this moment, life was a straightforward script written by biology. Hunger meant eat, danger meant run, comfort meant stay. Every creature followed these rules. But then, one of our ancestors did something radical. Maybe they were hungry but saved a piece of fruit for a child. Maybe they were exhausted but forced themselves to stay awake to tend a dying fire. In that moment of choosing the harder path, a new force entered the world. This wasn't just a deviation, it was a revolution. Willpower became the invisible engine that would drive humanity in a direction no other species had ever taken. It was our first superpower. At first, these acts of willpower were small, almost imperceptible. They were tiny battles fought and won inside the mind, enduring the gnawing pain of hunger to ensure the group had enough food for the winter, resisting the urge to sleep to stand guard against predators, protecting the vulnerable while they rested, facing the biting cold of a long night, huddled together not just for warmth, but for shared survival. Each act was a small sacrifice, a deliberate choice to endure discomfort now for a better outcome later. It was a simple but profound calculation, present pain for future gain. This wasn't instinct. Instinct screams for immediate relief. This was something new, a conscious override over thousands of generations. These small acts of defiance against instinct began to physically and mentally rewire our species. Our brains developed a stronger prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning, decision-making, and we started to internalize a crucial lesson, that enduring a temporary hardship could lead to long-term safety and prosperity. This idea, once alien, became the cornerstone of human strategy. We learned to hunt larger, more dangerous animals, because the reward of a successful hunt upon food for the whole group was worth the immense risk and effort. We learned to plant seeds and wait months for a harvest, a massive exercise in delayed gratification that would eventually lead to agriculture and the foundation of civilization itself. This shift from immediate reaction to long-term planning didn't just change our behavior, it transformed our very perception of time and reality. But the power of willpower wasn't just about survival in the physical sense. It fundamentally reshaped our social world. Think about it. In a purely instinctual world, caring for the sick, the injured, or the elderly is inefficient. It slows the group down. It consumes resources that could be used by the strong. Yet, our ancestors made a different choice. They chose to carry the wounded, to feed the old, to nurse the sick back to health. This was an act of willpower-driven compassion. It defied the cold logic of survival of the fittest. And what was the result? It built something incredibly powerful: trust, loyalty, a deep sense of community. A group bound by these compassionate choices, by this shared sense of responsibility, was stronger and more resilient than a group driven solely by individuals. When you knew that others would risk their own safety for you, you were more willing to do the same for them. This web of mutual support became our greatest advantage. Compassion, which might seem like a weakness from a purely biological standpoint, was transformed by willpower into our most potent social glue. We became a species that cared for each other, not because we had to, but because we chose to. And that choice made all the difference. As willpower grew stronger, it unlocked another uniquely human trait: imagination. By learning to say no to the present, we began to say yes to the future. A future that didn't exist yet, but one we could build in our minds. We started to envision better shelters, safer communities, and more effective ways to live. Dreams were born from this refusal of the status quo. Hope itself is a profound form of willpower. It's the stubborn belief that enduring the struggles of today can create a better tomorrow. It's the fuel that allows us to undertake monumental tasks, from crossing oceans to building cathedrals, with no guarantee of success. This internal strength, this ability to hold a vision of the future, laid the foundation for everything we consider culture. From the first spark of willpower came the need for rules, for morality, for a shared sense of purpose. We were no longer just creatures trying to survive. We were becoming beings who ask why. Why are we here? What is the right way to live? We began choosing meaning over impulse, principle over convenience. This is the origin of our belief systems, our laws, our art, and our philosophies. They are all grand, collective projects built on the individual's ability to control their immediate desires for a higher, shared goal. The first no was silent. It left no fossil, no artifact. It wasn't a roar of defiance against a predator, but a quiet whisper in the soul of a single ancestor. Yet, that whisper was the big bang of human consciousness. It was the moment we took the controls. It was the spark that ignited the flame of willpower. Turned the raw, chaotic energy of survival into a focused beam of intention. It transformed our primal fear into steadfast resolve. It elevated us from the realm of pure instinct to the world of conscious choice. That single, internal act of refusal didn't just change how our ancestors lived, it defined, and continues to define, who we are. It is the author of our past and the architect of our future.